And how do you like our new studio, by the way?
This is cool. I just kind of think that this was a bit overboard.
Bit overboard? Well, the idea is that we're going
I like everything here. I like the idea of the...
Well, this is just a start. You know, we literally only spent 10 minutes doing this together, putting it together.
I mean, it looks good. I just didn't like the inclusion of that. I love this, though. I love
Alright, everything okay. So, I mean, the idea is that we are going to be talking about gaming. We want to...
Old gaming.
And, you know, you spend a lot of time doing a lot of research on old games and stuff.
Yeah.
And then you are like the new ones. So, yeah, this is your thing. So, yeah, okay, maybe I shouldn't have brought that, you know, or the...
Or maybe the entire collection of freaking plushes up there. We didn't want to include them, so
I mean,
that's
that's literally just a tenth of what we've got. I mean, Lord knows what else we've got. We got so much, but...
just shove that in the drawer.
Yeah. So, you know, what did you think of the new TV show we started, Netflix series we started watching, High School?
That was good.
It was good.
We're gonna name. I have an episode for. I have a name for this episode. We're gonna make it here.
We haven't even come up with the name for the podcast yet.
No, not yet. But I have a name for the episode.
What's the name for the episode?
Magnavox Madness.
Magnavox Madness.
Yeah, we're gonna talk about the Magnavox today.
If I'm not mistaken, Magnavox, right?
Yeah,
Magnavox was the first ever home console that.
Yeah, they were awesome, you know, producing games like Anal Logic.
Yes, we watched a few videos just because I didn't know what it was, and I can't believe that was in 1972. Can you imagine that?
Yeah, Atari was making arcade games by that time.
Oh wow! I mean, and they wanted to sell it for what, $19, but I ended up selling it for like $100.
$100, yeah.
Because
they wanted to sell it for like 25. Yeah, we would have gotten it for like 30 over here, right? Maybe 40.
How much do you think one of those costs now if you want to buy it?
I don't know, man.
Yeah, you know, everything about I mean, it was, of course, you know, it was groundbreaking for its time, although it didn't feel like...
use a lot of
the funny part was they had to put stuff on the screen, like...
If we owned a Magnavox, we wouldn't even be able to. This is a flat screen from the 90s.
Yeah. Whoops. What's that?
That's a Game Genie. This is a Game Boy Color.
Game Boy. Oh, what's a Game Genie? I know you bought this from Germany.
Yeah.
What does it do?
It's one of the world's like first cheating device. Not first, but it's one of the most known cheating devices ever.
I see.
Yeah, and
how does it cheat?
What you do is you shove it on here. I still have the booklet actually.
Okay.
And so you'd open this part of it, get the booklet out, and there would be some different codes in here.
Different codes?
Yeah, different cheat codes. And so basically how it works is you plug it in, right?
Okay.
You already have your code memorized, or have the book out, read it as you're putting the code in.
Yeah.
And then there would be a code screen that comes up before the game. Put your code in, and then you would be playing the game with like infinite lives, you know, all that, all the works.
Oh wow.
Yeah. I've got Mario Land in here right now. My copy actually, the cart's good condition. The label isn't though.
Alright.
Yeah, see that? I think. Can it see that? No, it's a bit too bright. But whatever. The label sticker's just torn up and everything. It looks like one of those old used games that you'd buy in stores like America or whatever. And they'd have these old retro games that have screwed up labels. But other than that, the cartridge is fine.
Okay, so the topic today is Magnavox.
Magnavox, yeah.
Let's go.
So when they were making Magnavox, they were thinking of an actual extension for your TV. You plug it in, and so you could actually have like games and stuff. That probably was too expensive to produce. You know, we don't even have that now. You can't just get a USB and plug it into your TV. Games.
I heard it's they own the patent for the connection as well. Connector. I can't remember the name of it, but whatever that they used to connect the plug. So of course it had to be standard, but the Magnavox itself.
You couldn't just plug it into your TV.
Okay.
So
Alright.
you'd need like an additional box, like
Yeah.
Atari.
Yeah.
There was another clone called the Wonder Wizard, was it? That would have that same exact, plug. I don't think owning that would be fun either. Because, there were only 2 systems with that.
I see.
There was an adapter for Atari too that would do that. You can use you can find them cheap anywhere online, but... I've got my NES on the setup actually. This looks good.
Is that this is
isn't an original. This is a clone, but it does.
But this game is an original, right?
Yeah.
I remember you bought it from a thrift store or what was the second-hand store. You saw it and they asked for they asked a lot for it, didn't they? They asked like $30 or something for it, the lady, and
we don't.
You couldn't get it working for the longest time. We finally got that console now and got
It's so cheap, believe it or not, because where we're at, you can't get NES clones like all. So this was cheap for us.
So tell me about Magnavox.
Magnavox was it was a gaming console. It was supposed to be like an extension. Nintendo actually helped with the Magnavox, so they made the light gun. And the games were analogic.
That's funny. I always thought.
Yeah.
How many games did it have?
I heard it would have about 12. There was 12, and the 11th and 12th one are very rare.
But I heard that it's actually it wasn't like the games were different. The game was always the same. But it's just the way. Okay, so it just had these blocks or whatever that moved around on the TV.
Yeah.
The only thing that changed was the way they moved and how you control them, depending on what you stick in it. Because I don't think at that time, for example, all these are games, different games, maybe developed by different companies. You can use them all, plug them into the same console, or Game Boy or whatever, and so you have a different game. That technology came up, to my understanding, because I was watching that show on Netflix. There was a guy, he was an African American fellow, and and his family, I think his family, maybe his son and his grandchildren and everyone, they were sitting there, they were talking about how their father, his father was the first to come up with this idea of actually putting individual games in a separate cartridge, so you can use one console you can use different cartridges for one console. So that idea was apparently originally his, but it's my understanding that he never got the credit or probably the royalties for that idea. So that's why I was a bit surprised when I saw Magnavox, like it came with all these different cards and with different games, and I was like, wait, that's not consistent with what I just heard yesterday. But then when I think about it, those cards for Magnavox weren't like these. They weren't like different games or anything. It was pretty much the same game, but each card just taught the machine to like gave a different variation of that. So in that way it was probably different.
Some games on the Magnavox are just number one. Game number one on the Magnavox. It's just now that now what's going on is you could on the number one card, if you get rid of the ball right at the beginning, you'll basically just have every game in the library. And from my understanding, if you open the system up and tool around inside with it, you can actually tool around with the settings in the games. So you could make the ball bigger, make your character bigger. And
but the best part about it was the gun.
Oh yeah, I'm not sure if it was banned, but it probably was banned in the US for that kind of stuff.
No, not at that time. You have to understand. I mean, guns are not banned in US to begin with. You can buy a real gun in US.
Yeah, but there are regulations.
They're not, and it's actually quite easy to get a gun there, from what I understand.
Yeah, I know. You can get real guns.
Yeah.
Just the problem is you can't have them in video games, you know.
Yeah, and that's right. So, but that gun looked like a real gun. It was very well crafted,
and even the prototypes looked much more real than what came with it. The first prototype that came with the
I heard it was made by Nintendo, by the way, that gun.
Yeah. I said that earlier on.
Yeah.
Nintendo did make that, but when they were developing the gun, did you see that prototype? It was like it had kind of a glossy finish. The prototypes. That was super realistic.
Yeah, and apparently it was built with a recoil as well. So
yeah. It had a recoil. Oh my god.
And I mean, I think Nintendo at that time, they were making arcade games and things like that. So
no, Nintendo would make arcade games like 8 years after the gun.
but they would have been. I'm sure they were making like for Nintendo to have made a gun like that. They probably were doing things like
toys.
Toys and just they would have to have a pretty good setup to create serious piece of hardware like that. But
but they had pistols and everything planned for that thing too.
Yeah, and these days guns don't look realistic at all. They just come with the little orange tip in the end, and
maybe just freaking different colored. I don't know, you know. Yeah. That means the Nintendo Zapper was based off of the Magnavox gun. Yeah, you know how Atari made their comeback sometime before? You know,
This was recently, right?
Yeah. This was recent after they went. After they stopped making games in 1993.
Okay.
I think Magnavox should be that because they made the first educational game, which had a funny name, but it was the first educational game.
What became of them now? Do they still exist as a company, Magnavox?
I don't think so. They had the Odyssey.
Let's look that up. Magnavox.
Probably not, because they had the Odyssey 2, and that's all I can recall of the Magnavox. After Atari had their big selling Atari.
So Magnavox Odyssey, I'm looking at it on Wikipedia right now, was the first ever commercial home video game console. The hardware was designed by Ralph H. Baer at Sanders Associates. Well, Magnavox. So who's the company? So developer is and manufacturer is Magnavox. So let's see. Magnavox is an American electronic company founded since 1960. Has been the subsidiary of Dutch Electronics Corporation Philips. So Philips bought Magnavox.
Wow.
So Philips owns Magnavox today. So I don't know. So this is Magnavox founded in. So Peter Jensen. Okay, blah blah blah. So Magnavox brand. So history. It says here. India merged with whatever. In 1997, Magnavox branded CDI players were marked by Philips. So they're still around under Philips. They've done a few things. In Australia, the rights of Magnavox are not owned by Philips but by Mistral in Australia. So you know who Mistral are? I think Mistral are, they make kettles. We have a kettle in the kitchen. I think it's like
kettle. Yeah, obviously. Wow.
Yeah, this is a Kmart brand mostly. I know that in Europe, Magnavox. Okay, so they haven't done much work recently, but they are owned by a big corporation. So yeah, you can say that maybe at some point or the other.
I want to see a Magnavox kettle one day.
Yeah.
Maybe you think it'll come with a gun.
Yeah, it's interesting. So
you shoot the gun to start up the kettle.
Okay. So what else you want to talk about Magnavox?
The games.
Okay, go on.
So the titles were real bland. We don't know many names other than the educational game name.
Yeah.
But they had real bland names. In fact, they were so bland they almost didn't have names. You know, I called them Game Number 1. Imagine having a friend over. Yeah, you want to play number 7?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that was the first time. I mean, it was the. You know, that was the first time games came to households. So of course, I wouldn't expect them to be very original. Yeah.
Yeah, Atari was based off of the Magnavox, I've heard too.
Yeah?
Yeah, and computers could play games. It's just they had to have big games. People would usually think Magnavox was the one that invented tennis and everything. It wasn't. It was actually this guy named William Higginbotham. He created this game called Tennis for Two. Magnavox took that game, and then Atari took the Magnavox game. It's weird because Atari's Pong is a knockoff of a knockoff of a knockoff.
Didn't Steve Jobs? I saw a movie called I think it's with Ashton Kutcher. I think it was called Jobs, and in that movie I see him actually taking somebody else's. It's like a Pong game, you know. It's like a ball bouncing off bricks or whatever. And he takes that game to Silicon Valley and tries to make money off it. I'm not too sure if it's related to anything what you're saying though. But those were some of the first video games I
Breakout?
think.
Are you talking about Breakout?
The balls hit two ends of the wall and you're supposed to aim it at these bricks or blocks or whatever like that.
I know what you're talking about. You gotta. Yeah, you gotta like shoot the other guys away or something like that. Yeah, I know what you're talking about. That game came out on Atari, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Magnavox has a real funny history, you know, with the guns and the freaking cartridges, you know. And how you turn on the system. There's no power button, right? You just gotta shove the game in and it turns on.
Right. And apparently it doesn't always work, yeah.
What?
Yeah.
No, it works like 50% of the time, I've heard. But, you know, I wonder if there's a power button with a actual, what's it, cartridge hits. You know where the cartridge goes, how the cartridge slides in?
Yeah.
I wonder if there's a power button at the bottom where the cartridge slides in. Maybe that's what they did. That would be real cool.
Yeah, it could be a number of things. I mean, you know, basically a switch, an on-off switch is like it's a circuit. So when you turn it off, the circuit breaks. So you know, and then there's no power distribution in the system. Maybe, for example, if
that's real hard to give it a bit of force.
Okay, so maybe the switch was, you know how the teeth, maybe when you put it in like that, is it this way or that way?
Yeah, this way.
Yeah. So maybe the two, maybe when you put the cartridge in, that's probably when it gets turned on because of the.
Yeah. Magnavox, you know, there's no actual power button. It's just give me power.
That's pretty cool. Yeah.
I wouldn't really imagine a newer gaming system having that today, though. What if you leave the game in? What if you want to leave the game in? You know.
No, the newer ones don't because they do more than just play games, right? I mean, for example, let's just say PS Vita. I mean, there's so many other things built inside this system. You can, you know, it's not just playing games. Oh, look at that! I still got Killzone Mercenaries, my favorite game, in the Vita. So you know, you can use it for other applications and also it's not just for games. So that's why.
Yeah, I know. But I wouldn't really imagine a newer one having them because, you know, if you want to leave the game in, what if you just want to get up? Or maybe even use a controller, turn the system off and, you know, do whatever you're going to do. Head to bed or whatever, you know, because playing games all day.
It only did one thing, play games, that's right.
Yeah. The controllers look weird too, they look like toasters.
And they showed the interior, the circuit boards, and it's pretty sloppy. For example, if you look at circuit boards, you know, where they have put all the little the electronic, they haven't even trimmed the ends of soldering ends or anything, so you get all these wires sticking out here.
Yeah, that could be just an old age, really, or maybe they really didn't do anything. Because, you know, there was technology before that had soldered ends, you know, nicely cut off.
But this wasn't color, right? This was black and white. Even
yeah, they had the.
But they had the technology for color at the time, I hear. But they decided to, because what they decided to do was, you know, the color bit was whatever you stick on the, you know, they gave these sheets you can stick on the TV.
The TV TV would have static.
That was your color. Yeah, the still images.
Yeah, that was your color.
Yeah, because they saw it just in order to save money, they didn't want to make it colorize it. Yeah.
Yeah. It probably would have cost $25 to make it all, really.
So if this was this is the first ever home console, right?
Yeah.
Did games exist outside this, like in
arcades were around? Atari actually had games. They weren't like at home. They were in arcades. You know, they had.
So they had arcades back then.
Yeah.
Oh, right. Okay, interesting.
Yeah.
So what kind of games did they have in the arcade? Were they better than what the Magnavox had?
Well, the Magnavox was kind of the first thing you could bring home, right?
Yeah.
So, I mean, you really can't compare.
Okay.
Obviously, you know, if you're talking graphics, gameplay, maybe Atari, if you're talking about somewhere else or anywhere.
Mm-hmm.
If you're talking about Magnavox, you can't compare literally because it's home. It was the first time you could bring anything home, really.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah.
If you could afford $100 in 1972,
Yeah.
But they sold 300,000 or whatever.
That was less than 1% in 1972, though.
Yeah. Still a lot. Yeah.
Yeah, quite a bit.
Mm-hmm.
I wonder if they have any left over from that.
It should. I'm sure it has historical value. I mean, you know, if those YouTubers could get their hands on one, it can't be that expensive, I guess. Yeah.
Yeah, but those are the ones that have already been used. Imagine buying an Odyssey that hasn't been used.
I'm sure somebody's got it somewhere.
What two's worth in 1970.
So when did the arcades come in?
Arcades? That's kind of a hard thing to say. Maybe sometime in the 50s, 60s. Because, you know, when William Higginbotham was making games, he was a scientist. He wanted to be the new Albert Einstein.
William Higginbotham.
Yeah.
Was he the one who made the first video game?
Yeah, it was called Tennis for Two. It was basically Pong with nothing.
And it was an arcade.
He made it on these big computers, and he put it into the
giant mainframe computer.
Yeah, and he pitched it to these other guys.
What was the first ever arcade that came?
I'm pretty sure he converted the game into an arcade too. So
in America. So
yeah.
So arcade.
So that would have been the first. He would have been the first to make arcade games too.
It'll be interesting to know what the first ever arcade machine would be. What do you think it would be?
I'm not sure what it looked like. I don't know he made it.
Okay.
I think he might have converted it into an arcade game. Not entirely sure.
Alright. Well, let's look that up. Computer Space is considered the first ever arcade machine created by Nolan Bushnell and Ted Dabney in 1971. The machine held up as the first commercially produced video game, and its creator went on to co-found Atari. So 1971 was only a year before the home console. So
yeah. I mean, that was probably the one they put everywhere. But William Higginbotham, I think he had.
Who is this William Higginbotham guy? Let's find out who he is.
He created games in 1955.
Okay, so let's see. Okay, William Alfred Higginbotham. That's it. And he is he's died in 1994. Was an American physicist, a member of the team that developed the first nuclear bomb. So we were talking about Oppenheimer. So he was in that team. Wow.
And he created video games.
And he later became a leader of non-proliferation movement. He also has a place in the history of video games for his 1958 creation of Tennis for Two. You're right.
Yeah.
The first ever interactive analog computer game, and one of the first electronic games to use graphical display. And wow, and he was in the Manhattan Project. Imagine that.
Yeah.
So you
I think I wonder if they have probably not, because the game's not that known anywhere really. But I wonder if he had, if anyone still has the, files for the game, or,
Of course they will. Of course they will.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure they would. It's just,
I'm sure you can Google it and it will be there. You can probably play it online. Yeah. But imagine what kind of a genius you had to be at that time. With no resources to. So Magnavox. Is there? Did they ever make was that the only machine this company ever made, or?
There was a sequel after Atari had its big rise and everything, and when they started making stuff. And so hey, everyone's in the gaming business now, so we might as well just throw another console out there.
Okay.
Try and give it another shot.
Yeah.
It probably didn't do as well as the first one.
I see.
But it's an Odyssey 2. It's a sequel.
Yeah.
To the first thing that ever brought video games home. So that would be pretty cool.
When did Pac-Man come out?
Sometime in the 80s, actually, maybe before.
And so maybe on another time we can talk about the second Magnavox then.
Yeah. Next one might be on 64DD. So we're just gonna end it here.
Okay, we can end it here. We'll end it here because so when you're ready, maybe we can talk about the second installment, which is about the Magnavox. What happened? You think it is as interesting as the first one? Because our first one was interesting because it's the first ever. Sometimes the problem with second ones is that they try to do a number 2. Obviously it will be probably better than number 1, but it doesn't quite have the same back story behind it for his historical, because I guess it. Do you think it made any history? Second one by that time?
I hope so, because sometimes second ones will have huge histories better than the first ones, or they just won't at all. We'll have a look into it. We won't do the episode of There's Nothing. We'll do it. The next one will be about the 64DD. So stay tuned for that.
So we're gonna do this more often now. We're going to talk about games. You like talking about games? Okay, yeah. And what do you think of
the setup? That's a bit overboard, and but everything else is perfect. I want to keep that there, actually.
You want to keep that there?
Yeah, not this one though.
TV is too new though. You know what I mean? We don't.
No, it's not, because we'll need it to play games and stuff. And it's from the 90s. It counts. It's actually old. So is this thing too.
It's from the 90s, but don't.
And you think this is better?
No, that is not okay. But I was just.
Sorry, be quiet about the TV.
No, but my idea was,
Alright, we're gonna end it here.
No, that's alright. She can come. My idea was that we should have a TV that looks wooden. Yeah, with the dial-in tunes that you can turn around.
We can afford it at least.
We will be able to find one that the original Atari was. Yeah, probably. So the original Atari was. So what do you think of our studio, Skylar? We're talking about old games. We got the arcades. Yeah, so we will revisit Magnavox another time. It doesn't have to be the very next time we do it. We can do something else and come back to it if you want. Because there are so many other interesting topics that we can talk about. I mean, I would love to hear more about your friend. What's his name? Mario guy. So, anyway, getting back.
I stolen this.
Yeah. So yeah. We'll make it a point to regularly meet up here and talk about the history of gaming and the backstories, because I know you spend a lot of time doing research on this stuff, and
Yeah,
you
it's
love.
real interesting.
I was thinking, this boy, he knows all this stuff that's mind blowing. He should share it with the world. So that's why.
This is something I wanted to do for a while.
Okay.
Okay, this is good. We're gonna end it off here.
Yeah, and stay tuned for the next episode.